lenses in them, so I got maybe hold on here. Bifocals.
I know.
I got my knees. Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, just let me know.
Not me? Thought you were coming to talk to me.
Yes.
Okay. I just wasn't sure what the time it was.
Yeah, they had to do, right. And I'll read this today. I said, well, we will. Because they're there.
No problem with that. Yeah, I just
Yes. Yeah, we used to.
I know. Make sure you ask all the questions to Moomon. Hey, Donnie, I'm asking you all the questions.
wait, Muma.
Gonna get
Do
all
that
the
again.
questions.
I thought you were trying to look just
Chief,
like
are you
him.
ready?
Do you need Lakeisha's?
I want to see the two of you sitting together with those on.
Need Lakeisha's?
Yeah.
Ladies
I
and,
want to see Muma and Scarlett.
ladies and gentlemen, Chief Scarlett's going to present the budget for the Springfield Police Department. Chief, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chair, and good evening, Mayor and council members. It's both an honor and a privilege to address you once again this year, reflecting on the commendable achievements of our police force and outlining strategic plans for the upcoming fiscal year. With the valuable guidance of Mayor Busher and the unwavering support of each of you, we proudly uphold the status as a cutting-edge police force, often considered elite amongst comparables. A crucial aspect of this ongoing success is the vocal affirmation that we receive from each one of you, assuring that the citizens of Springfield that public safety remains our top priority. Furthermore, it underscores the collective belief that our city deserves nothing but the best in terms of personnel, training, and equipment. And thanks to the recent actions of this council, our agency continues to flourish, a testament that will become apparent here momentarily. I express my gratitude to each one of you and your willingness to make challenging financial decisions, particularly when it comes to implementing technology and strategically deploying personnel throughout our community. The budget request for FY25 from the Springfield Police Department has been meticulously crafted to strike a balance. Our senior leadership team has diligently evaluated every line, ensuring that the cost of operations aligns with the necessity to expand our workforce. Notably, you will observe that the sole increase among major object code lines pertains to personnel, reflecting our commitment to enhancing the workforce. As elected leaders, you all, and as members of the SPD senior staff, let us continue to work together in harmony for the greater good of our city as a whole. I'm dedicated to this, and I know you are as well. So before we begin the presentation, I want to make a few introductions of everyone seated up here this evening. Most of you, or all of you, know most of them, but I want to make sure that they're all recognized for their hard work and diligence that they perform on a daily basis. And it begins with Assistant Chief Mumaw, Deputy Chief Stunkel, Deputy Chief Dodd, Deputy Chief Pickford, Commander Graves, Commander Beal, Xavier Rice, who's in charge of our emergency communications, and Calvin Gasco. And Calvin's our budget analyst who joined the city mid-year, and I must say that he's done a phenomenal job, not only getting up to speed, but helping us, providing valuable input for the future. So, all right. A lot of these slides you've seen before, so it's my intention to buzz right through the majority of them. Our department structure has not changed. We have 3 divisions: field operations, criminal investigations division, and our admin services division. From a workforce perspective, I want to highlight a couple things on here. Number one, I want to begin with that box right in the middle that says 251 current sworn staff. Ladies and gentlemen, our authorized strength is 254, and we have 251 people on the payroll for 99% staffing rate. That's a number that I think is worth highlighting and has not been the case in several years here. We've worked extremely hard to ensure that our workforce has been staffed, and I'm certainly proud of the men and women up here today who've helped me along with that process. So what we're asking for this year is an increase in that staffing numbers. If there's one thing I've heard from each of you is that we need more officers for this function or that function. And as this presentation continues, we'll get into a little more detail about how we can assign 15 personnel throughout our community. From a civilian perspective, our authorized strength was 30 last year. During a mid-budget year, we increased a position, the discovery compliance individual. We're also asking for one additional civilian position this year. That will be for an assistant evidence coordinator. If there's one thing I've learned, that succession planning is extremely important. Our current evidence coordinator is anticipating retirement within the next 12 to 15 months, and I need to get someone in there to begin to learn that process. So I'm asking for an additional civilian for the assistant evidence coordinator. I'd like to talk a little bit about numbers here as far as 2023 is concerned. This is, again, calendar year 2023. Our department handled roughly 103,000 calls for service. That's a 3.7% increase from last year. We hired, again, a new record for the Springfield Police Department, 46 new officers in 2023. And if you're keeping track at home, that's 88 officers that I've hired as the chief of police. That's over 40% of our workforce. So we're a young department, but we are, again, 99% staffed. One thing I keyed on last year at this particular budget hearing was the intention of making sure that we had the highest trained police force in the area. And as you can see, we have almost 21,000 internal training hours that were hosted by our Springfield Police Academy, as well as an additional 418 training courses that were handled off-site. Gun violence reduction continues to be a large task of ours, and as you can see here, we took 437 illegal firearms off the streets of Springfield. And that directly correlates to the final number on there, a 47% reduction in our homicides compared to our 5-year average. Additional accomplishments for 2024 is continued emphasis on our community policing initiatives, specifically the mayor's flagship initiative of the Build Springfield program. We hired a communications liaison to help us recreate our brand, and I would encourage you all, if you're not, to join the Springfield Police Department social media site, where you can see some of the great work that's being done on a daily basis. Again, we talk about recruiting. I'm extremely proud of the recruitment campaign. This in part is due to Sergeant Chris Rhodes, who's really taken our recruiting efforts to an all-time high. And after multiple years of delays, something that we have talked about many times at this podium, vehicles, we took possession of 47 patrol vehicles, modernizing our fleet and reducing all but one Crown Victoria that remains.
That should probably go in the front lawn or something.
That's right.
Yes, that may be a retirement gift to one of our officers as well. I will say we also started our annual vehicle replacement plan as part of this year's budget, and that's to ensure that we're never in this situation again when it comes to not having professional, modernized, brand new equipment. All right, some additional accomplishments. The implementation of several grants, all listed there, accounting for over $7 million in funding. We have a soft launch of our SEED initiative, and the SEED initiative is a collaboration of community service providers aimed at addressing homelessness throughout our community. I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Stunkel to speak briefly on the SEED initiative, as I think it's extremely important throughout our community.
I've been up here before, spoke to you all regarding SEED. We handed out the one-page flyer that the group has created, kind of our sales pitch on SEED, which stands for Springfield, Empower, Engage, and Deflect. It's a partnership between several community service providers in Springfield, including the police department. And our mission statement, as you can read there, we're dedicated to creating a safer and healthier community by improving our approach to providing services to those impacted by homelessness, crime, violence, substance abuse, and mental health. This really kind of began with legislative funding, grant funding that we received. And from that, we were also offered help from Community Centers for Health and Justice TASK, which is Treatment Alternatives for Safer Communities. And they came in and said, we want to build this initiative with you. They offered training and support for that. And we have been doing that for a little over a year. And just in November, we held a soft launch. The mayor and the chiefs both spoke at that event where officers received the deflection training and began referring people to the deflection specialists. We expect, hopefully, early spring that we will have a public launch once those deflection specialists who are provided by TASK, no cost to the city, are really up and running. They are not at full staff yet, and hopefully by that point we will have a full staff and be at a point where we can really publicly launch the SEED initiative. But they are currently doing referrals. They have, Joe, do you know how many deflection specialists? 3 current deflection specialists who are working with our homeless outreach team. Really link up the individuals who are impacted by this with the right service providers in our community.
Thanks. Appreciate that, Deputy Chief. And again, it's no surprise that homelessness remains an issue throughout this entire nation, right? And I'm proud to say that here at the Springfield Police Department, we're doing our part. SEED is one of those functions. Our grant with Memorial Behavioral Health to have behavioral health experts riding with our officers 60 hours a week is part of that process. What you're going to see as far as my request, additional personnel will be adding to our homeless outreach team. That's all ways that we're continuing to do our part to reduce homelessness here in our city. Last accomplishment on this page, Deputy Chief Andy Dodd attended the FBI National Academy. That's an internationally renowned elite training for senior staff for law enforcement agencies. He's the first person to attend that in over 13 years. That will be part of the ongoing succession planning for our senior staff. So what are we looking at for the upcoming fiscal year? Personnel initiative, the addition of 15 patrol officers. And I want to talk briefly about our hiring. So again, our current staffing is 251 of 254 officers. How did we get here? Well, we recreated our brand, and the applicants noticed. We redeveloped internal and external trust within our organization. And thanks to you all, we offered much needed incentives for our own officers who are helping in the recruiting process. So from a retirement perspective, I have 3 letters of intention to retire from my officers in the upcoming month. There are an additional 15 that are eligible for retirement, 3 of which are seated in this front row this evening. We need to ensure that we avoid any gap or delay in service and pre-plan for those retirements by hiring in advance. As you all know, it takes approximately 10 months to get an officer fully trained. We have a very robust lateral program that's taking place now. I've got officers from former officers from Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, Alabama, and Charleston, South Carolina that have already interviewed with us and want to come join our team. So that says a lot about not only our local recognition, but recognition from across the country that this is a place to come work. So if we're talking about adding 15 additional officers to 269, I want you all to know that we've developed a clear plan to deploy our resources. These will be deployed to ancillary positions to supplement our field operations division. And this is really, these deployments are based on the constituent complaints that you all hear, that we hear, as well as the reduction of unit size from years past. So I'm just going to buzz through this. I sent these all to you in email, but I just want to touch on them. A full-time recruiter position. Again, recruiting is important. We need to stay ahead of the game. I think we should fill a full-time recruiter position. 4 additional traffic officers. That would include day watch. I'm sorry, this is not on a slide. I'm reading out of my book here. But 4 additional traffic officers. That would include day watch, second watch traffic, and DUI cars. An additional homeless outreach team officer. Officer Mike Newman does a phenomenal job. And if we could have 2 of them out there, I can't imagine how much progress we would make in this community. We need an additional sergeant to oversee the staffing of our school resource officers, our neighborhood police officers, and our HOT team. We're asking for 2 additional proactive crime unit officers. Those are our undercover narcotics officers, extremely important. I just told you about the number of guns that we've recovered off the street, and that's in large part due to our street crimes unit. We're asking for 2 additional officers to increase the street crimes unit and one detective to be assigned to the ATF task force. Working with our federal partners to hold people accountable for holding illegal firearms is something that we're committed to. Additionally, we have 2 specialty assignment positions. These are temporary positions for our officers to try out to see if they like that. It may be a career pathing for them. This will be like a 90-day or 120-day assignment to street crimes, proactive crime unit in our detective bureau. And finally, we need a planning and research accreditation sergeant, as we were recently accredited, and those mandates continue year after year. So that's how I would intend to break down 15 additional hires if given the opportunity to make those hires. One other thing that we're looking at for 2025 goals and initiatives, telecommunications standpoint, obviously with the derecho, we ran into issues with communication. By partnering with the Sangamon County's Starcom communications program that they currently have in place, there would be four additional towers throughout our community that would add redundancy levels. So that's one of our goals and initiatives that comes in at approximately $100,000. Additionally, I mentioned the Traffic Services Division. Our intention is to purchase a vehicle as well as implement a motor unit. Additional goals include crime reduction through data-driven policing. Our Fusus Real-Time Crime Center is in the process of being deployed. That's a huge benefit to our officers as they're responding to the scene. Essentially, it's a one-stop shop on their on their laptop computers as far as what information they're gathering as they're responding to scenes. One thing that I heard most recently was issues on the lake this past summer, and one way to curb some of those issues or to fill our second Beat 500 neighborhood police officer position and put them on the lake full-time. Having the continuity of one person on that lake versus parceling that out is going to be extremely important. Additionally, we're going to continue with leadership and development of the senior staff. So the Springfield Police Department has several funding sources, from a corporate fund to several restricted funds that can only be used for certain purposes. And from an all-fund perspective, 3/4 of the money is geared towards personal service line. I really want to buzz through all funds and touch on the corporate. And again, from the corporate perspective, personal services line make up 78% of what we're asking for. One thing I'd like to highlight on this next slide, if you go down the lines by the major object codes, there's really only one line on here that doesn't have a negative in front of it, and that's our personal services line to increase by 4.6% for our additional officers. Everything else, we've done our due diligence and reduced lines to ensure that we could offset the hiring of new officers. And that bottom right number, from a total budget increase perspective, 0.3% is all we're asking for an increase this year. This just breaks down what we talked about, and I don't feel the need to necessarily get into each one of these, but these are each of the major object codes and how much they are down. And for the sake of time, I won't go through those, and I will open the floor up to any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Chief. Alderman Williams?
I'll take it, but that was from last time, but listen, just real quick. So I guess I'll start with seed. So in seed, is there anything that would help with participation? And what I mean by that, I see the city really reaching out to the communities, kind of like back when your department was real big on that initiative out at the field by Pillsbury when we did all that. But I looked at that community, and in particular, I felt they didn't give us much of a response back other than that they felt real good to see the agencies and a lot of the other nonprofit agencies come out and be with them. And I didn't know if the reason was that their community has a lot of 80+, so it might be their age. I mean, what else can you expect of them? When I meet with them in the community, they basically say, you know, we call the police. But I'm trying to get them past that step and engage in some of this stuff that may fall under seed. The other thing that may be impacting their participation may be their income level. And this is whether they're black or white, it don't matter. It's just that they're so barely making it that all their efforts and time, they're at work somewhere. Or they're doing something else. So when I want them to focus on crime and engage in the city and just trying to do this, as they say, build program and that kind of stuff, I don't know if that 80+ community filtered with a bunch of real poor people is the reason why they don't come along. And then the third and final thing is that they're not homeowners, they're renters. So they don't have a built-in stake of carrying as deep as maybe me as alderman want them to carry. So as you're pushing that out, anything we can do, you know, to help.
Yeah, I think we all, when I say we all, every citizen of Springfield bears the burden of getting the message out of what's going on in their community, right? I mean, we all need to be champions of these programs, and I think that's extremely important. And if there's one thing I heard from the Helping Hands ribbon cutting yesterday was that no citizen in this community should ever be forgotten about or left behind. And I think that's needs to be not only the mentality of the Springfield Police Department moving forward, but everyone who's able-bodied and capable to do something about it needs to do something in this community.
Okay. And then my second thing and final thing would be traffic. The increase in traffic, I'm for it. I think the community don't understand it. I mean, they see the little car and the traffic warden on the side. But then when I get the calls, it's about a lot of unique stuff. There could be zoning, it could be a lot of things, you know. An example I'll give you is the blocking of a bus stop. So a guy that fixed his car illegally out of his garage. The people whose cars are waiting to be fixed are parked along the street and in front of a bus stop. And so the debate becomes call the police or call the traffic warden. I usually say oh, they're too busy and got more important stuff to do. Try to make a traffic warden come out, but it doesn't matter because to the community, it's just police, the word police. They don't know the divisions, I guess, of a police department. So my question to you is that if we increase these traffic wardens, would that come with some kind of piece or advertisement on how and when to use a traffic warden dealing with parking and things like that versus just calling in to the police?
Yeah, and this is actually an increase of 4 additional police officers that would work in our traffic division. So they're going to be sworn officers. But I agree with you that proactive education on some of this stuff goes a long way. And I think with the increased manpower in that unit, they can focus on some of the proactive education that has gone by the wayside, attending some of these neighborhood events and getting that message out. I think that's important.
Okay, so right now, when we call the police, we're relying on whoever that dispatch is to kind of listen and then assign it to the right division to get the right type of appropriate officer out there?
So if you call the police and say, I have a parking-related issue and it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, we have 2 traffic wardens who are not sworn officers that would respond, and they can write parking tickets if it's a parking violation.
Okay.
Additionally, any sworn officer could also do that same function if they're not out answering calls for service.
Okay, and they also would be the experts on the enforcements.
Yes,
meaning this is private property, this ain't private property, you know, what we can and can't do. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Okay, any further questions related to the budget proper? Looks like Alderwoman Conley.
Thank you. Chief, first of all, I just want to thank everyone who's up here today, all of your officers. I was listening to a radio story the other day, and they were talking about, you know, these huge advances police departments are making and co-responder models and working with mental health and other sorts of, you know, innovations that were new and exciting. And I thought they should probably come to Springfield and talk to our chief, because we've really been implementing with real integrity these very complicated models. It's not easy. And again, just applause to your your staff here and on all of your officers who implement this work. It's phenomenal, very impressive. I am excited to see you asking for more officers. I'm relieved you've already got the cars in the budget, so we don't have to have this conversation too many times. I will say we had one conversation, well, we've had a couple of conversations about the homeless outreach team. And I appreciate that you are making that actually more of a team with this budget. We get calls, everyone does. There are homeless people who are staying in different parts of the city, throughout the city, and it is a citywide issue that is too much for one officer to handle. We had that conversation about the level of trust and those conversations that have to come. So I'm very excited to see these. I fully intend to support 15 new officers. But the one that really, and another issue that I don't think anyone here has had their fill of yet is the traffic violations. And in fact, I actually almost had Alderman Donilon's experience today coming into this meeting where someone flew through a solid red light. Like, I always count to 3 and then start moving, and almost lost my front bumper this evening. We see, and this is not an uncommon occurrence. It is one of the main complaints. I do hope that if we have these new officers or experienced officers, but these new positions, that those will be broadcast. The fact that we are, as a city, as a police department, taking those traffic violations much more seriously, I would like to see even an outreach campaign around that, because as much as you've got new people coming in, and hopefully they'll get trained up quickly and we can get them moving and issuing as many tickets as they need to, even that won't be enough unless people decide on their own to change their behaviors. I mean, this guy tonight, there was no way that was in question. It was a red light, And we see this all the time. I had someone racing me down 5th Street. You pull up next to him at the red light. We're all there together until they dodged around someone and ran the red light. But this budget is a minimal increase from last year and contains so much of what we've been asking for. The only thing it's missing is I do think we need to look into more neighborhood police officers. I don't know if that's going to be for this year, and that may be in your planning for next year, but I just want to, I know Alderwoman DeCenso is no longer with us. Jennifer, I don't know if you know this, that was her claim every year, I want my own NPO. But it is an important, that is another really important asset that we have in the police department that has that more intimate connection and longer term knowledge. So thank you very much for this budget, for these goals. I hope that we can retain some of those people who are within close to retirement, but I also understand the joy of living the dream and retiring. So overall, mostly, I'm very impressed. This is a very small increase in your budget that can have extremely meaningful impacts on the main complaints that I get on a regular basis. So thank you very much for that, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Anything else?
I could talk a little more, but I'll pass the mic.
Alderwoman Purchase, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Scarlett, one of my questions was the increase for your head count, and I couldn't find in our book what was those officers being assigned to. I didn't get everything you were saying because I was looking at you while you were talking.
Okay.
So can you repeat it, because I have one additional that you said we would be helping with, like the federal task, the FTA. Then you said 2 specialty positions.
Yes, those are temporary positions.
Okay, temporary. And then what was your other ones?
I'll just start at the top, and how's that
Okay.
sound? Full-time recruiter, 4 traffic officers, an additional homeless outreach team,
That one.
additional, actually, you could just say 2 sergeant positions, 2 undercover narcotics positions, 1 ATF task force officer, 2 street crimes officers, and then 2 specialty assignment positions.
Okay,
And I hope that equals 15, I'll be honest with you.
I
didn't do the
think
math.
it does too. The specialty ones, how long is that for?
So essentially, it's a temporary assignment of 90 to 100 days, and it gives young officers in field operations an opportunity to try out other different divisions and determine, I may want to make a career out of this, so I'm going to test for the next detective test. So
I like that, but how do you determine, because what if you have like 5 that come to you at one time? How do you rotate, or how do you determine who you're choosing for that?
Yeah, so we would ask them to essentially put in a letter of interest, and it would be up to the staff that oversees that division. But typically, we would reach down to the sergeants who currently supervise them and say, who's made a good impression on you? Who do you think really deserves this opportunity? And with a 90 or 120-day rotation, everyone gets an opportunity over time.
Okay. And I just wanted to echo what Alderwoman Conley has said, because I take my notes, because these are big numbers that we're playing with, so I don't want to misquote. And I said your overall budget was balanced. You was at 72.5 million. Then your personnel costs had increased by 2.5 million, but then you had 1.3 that went to pensions, and then the rest of your budget you was decreasing. So you really did work hard to make. I see you shaking your head, so that's good. I matched your energy. I see that you really worked hard to bring that down, and I'm happy to support, and just wanted to make sure I had it correct about the officers that you were bringing on board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Rockford.
Thanks, Chair. Chief, appreciate you being here, your staff. My concern, and I'm echoing what a lot of the older persons have already spoke about, Director Metzger spoke about it, but is the funding. Do we hire people now, and a year, 2 years down the road, we lay off? I mean, that's a concern that I have. My father always said, eat this elephant in small bites, and I know you've been behind, on the hiring process, but again, as a new alder person, it concerns me. It's scary for the future. So I'm not against hiring new officers, but my concern is the funding side of it. So.
And let me be very clear. I have no desire to hire someone that I may have to lay off down the road. That's just simply not fair. I would never do that. And I think as we look ahead to the next 3 to 5 years, the amount of retirements that we're going to have, if we overhire now those 15, that's going to counterbalance. And what I'm trying to avoid are those ebbs and flows where we get way low. If we're just overhiring, anticipating these retirements, that's certainly going to keep us in a good spot.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quickly, Chief, how many recruits we got in the academy right now?
We have 11 recruits in the academy now. I've got 30 officers in some form of training right now.
Okay, and we're budget allocated for those?
Yes.
For them, okay, good. So this request will be for additional officers. So let me ask you this real quick, Chief. Staying on, at the 253 or the 269, are we gonna stay on 12s or go to 8s?
I think that's a discussion we need to have with the officers. I mean, honestly, I told you I've hired almost 90 people in 2 years. Since we've been on 12-hour days, we've probably hired 130 people. And so these younger officers enjoy their opportunity for time off. So, I think we've mentioned a hybrid schedule before, where you could go back to the traditional 9-hour days for some and 12 hours for others.
Right.
My goal is to be efficient to where we can answer calls for service, but also gather the input from our officers to see what works best.
Okay. And does it matter if we're at the 253 or the 269? Does it make it easier if you make a decision one way or the other, or if you
if we were at 253 or 4 and all those officers were not in training, we would have plenty of bodies to run whatever schedule we want.
Okay. On the SEED program, I think you have some very, very good partners, Chief. Continue to work with some of our groups on the east side, east of the 11th Street tracks. I think that's good to add, many of those. I know you work with them, as well, and let's just keep that going. I do have just a couple questions with the Community Connection Grant. How are we looking on that? Has it been submitted to DCL and everything?
Yes, you're talking about Senator Turner's grant. Yes, so those 3 requested amendments or addendums have all been sent to DC, to our grant manager, I believe is what her title is. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And with the Focused Deterrence Program, what groups are we working with that?
So that's through the outlet right now.
Okay, all right. And so this may help me with my last question. I think that's a great avenue as well. I would like to see us get with the NAACP Back to School, Stay in School program ran by Mr. Betts and Tim Allen.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Those are kids that are, being put out of school for various activities, and I think us getting to them early and working with them will help us as well. So those are my final thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Redpath.
Well, Chief, I'm really impressed with that we've moved to partner up with the county on those 4 towers for the STARCOM system. Will the fire department be on that too? The same system?
I'll have to talk with the chief on that. I think we have a meeting on Monday between us, the fire department, and the county to determine how all this is going to be.
Okay, and he just okayed that, so that's good for us, because that gives us a better opportunity for better communication in emergency situations like we needed during the derecho. So Mayor Busher and I attended the Lake Homeowners Association meeting last night, and the topic of discussions was several different issues, but the number one issue was the security on the lake. I see that you're looking at putting an officer out there full time, which is good. With talking to them and some of your staff and about the way we need to do things, we need to work with our security out there and with the IDNR Conservation Police to work on our enforcement out there at the lake. We have not had any. It's been very poor for the last 3 or 4 years, and we have people coming into the lake don't get permits. There's violations on safety equipment on the boats. There's no safety checks being made, and so I've made some recommendations to the director about how we improve that, and I'm hoping that you and your staff will work with them on trying to help train whatever officers they need. We should not be putting people on boats on Lake Springfield if they're not gone through the boater safety class, that they can swim and they can handle situations that they will run into. Because as you know, you get out there on an OUI situation and somebody's going to get hurt. There is issues out there that need to be addressed, and I hope that you could reach out to Director Brown and talk to him about how we can integrate all of our services together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to be clear, to clarify one of your comments, our officers that ride on the lake and go through a boater safety class, learn how to drive the boat and can swim. Those are obviously requirements from the police department standpoint. And this is only one officer, so you're right. There are other folks that provide security on that lake that I think also need to be in tune with what their job function is out there, and I'll have conversations about that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Carlson.
Thank you. Chief, I want to say thank you to you and your staff. Obviously for your communication through the holiday season as far as, what happened in my ward in the mall area. And I know you had a good meeting with the mall folks. I mean, and we talked about a couple of different ideas I assume people can feel safe going to the mall, and you had good communication with the mall and sort of what they're going to do and what we can do in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I would say, and this is for all of us, don't ever become complacent regardless of where you are. You should always know your surroundings and keep your eyes up and pay attention. That's what I tell my kids. That's what I would tell anyone else. We did have good conversations with the mall, offered them some ideas to increase and bolster their security. We're providing extra patrols, walking patrols out there now. Skywatch camera is out there. So we're definitely working in partnership with them to ensure that citizens can feel safe out there.
And again, thanks for the communication through that whole process.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alderman. For the benefit of the chair, will Alderman Williams, Rockford, Redpath, and Carlson all uncheck themselves as speakers? That would be helpful. And then Alderwoman, Natrano.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm really excited to see, I had no idea Beat 500 went all the way down to the lake, because that is Ward 6's Beat 500 is majority Ward 6. So I guess Alderwoman DeCenzo is getting her wish, or she could be.
Sort of, it's going to the lake.
Well, yeah. But so with the additional 4 traffic officers, how many traffic officers would you plan to have? My concern is, our city is huge. And I could think of 4 places for traffic officers just in Ward 6. So, yeah, how do you plan to manage that?
Well, I would say if your recommendation is to increase that number, I certainly would entertain that as well. No, I think it's based upon constituent complaints is how we look at that. So our total unit would be 5 officers and 1 sergeant. So 6 people out there combating some of these major intersections, major thoroughfares. So that's just one portion of our patrol. I mentioned the motor units. That's something we're going to get in as far as an additional patrol element. We have some of the other technology components that we can use, speed signs, speed studies, all that stuff. And then on top of all that, we encourage our officers to also, who are not answering calls for service, to go sit at some of these major intersections and stop vehicles that are running red lights or speeding. So that's how I would anticipate us utilizing our resources.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Hanauer.
Thanks, and thank you to all of you guys and Assistant Chief Mumaw. You've done a hell of a job up here tonight on your presentation. A couple things. Do you think that? So I really am happy to hear that we're getting people from other that's already been through the police academies or whatever that want to come. Is it a combination? Could it be a combination of raising our pay and the residency, or is it just the pay, or are we seeing that? What's your take on that?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think, salary has a lot to do with that. I think when our officers go to their friends who are police officers elsewhere and say, this is now a great place to work, come join our team, I think internal recruiting is absolutely important. I think also not being told where you have to live plays into that as well. I mean, all those things combined makes this an attractive law enforcement agency for people to come work at.
That's great. And the more, so what's that save us on training when we can bring someone in?
Well, the biggest thing is the time, I would say, associated with it. So we don't have to send them to a 16-week academy, which costs us $7,000 per person. We can eliminate that. Essentially, they would go right into the field training program, depending on what state they come from. And then instead of having to train 22 weeks, a minimum of 22 weeks, they already have the baseline knowledge. So it's really more of a 8 to 12-week training period. So we're getting experienced officers in the door and out on the street, helping us out much more efficiently.
Great. And finally, one of the things, and I've had a conversation with you, and we need to kind of, I don't know whether there's anything we can do from a council point of view, raising fines or whatever, but I do think that we need to look at, the whole, we've had a lot of shoplifting where people are going in and just clearing, grabbing things, throwing them in bags and taking off. And I just want to make sure that we're on top of it. And if we can do something to increase the penalties from our end, I'm more than happy to do it, because it is, my concern is we're going to lose stores. I know we've lost 1 or 2 in town because of it, and I don't want to lose any more. So, but thank you for your help on the issue that I called you about.
Yeah, retail theft is plaguing cities nationwide. We have not seen here locally what's transpired in larger cities, and I think a lot of that has to do with proactive efforts on our part. We currently have a grant through the AG's office for organized retail crime theft prevention, and that includes purchasing this FUSIS real-time crime, additional LPRs, and having additional officers out on patrol and hire back functions. I've also spoke with Corporation Counsel, and we're potentially looking at ways to ensure that retailers within our community actually call the police when crime occurs in their store. If we don't know about it, we can't fix it. We can't hold people accountable. And I want the citizens of this community to know that we're going to hold criminals accountable who think they can walk into stores and steal. And the only way we can do that is if we get called. So Corporation Counsel and I will work together on that. I also had a conversation with this new state's attorney, John Milheiser, today. He's taking an active role in holding those who are arrested for retail thefts accountable as well. So it's certainly a bigger issue than it has been in this community, and we're going to be proactive in our efforts on it.
Is there anything we can do as far as trying to make sure that they get the good enough cameras to where we can get good images of the people.
Yeah, I think
Is there anything we're doing?
that could all be part of the, some sort of ordinance package that we could discuss and put together, again, to hold retail establishments accountable for their role.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alderman. Anyone else on the council have a question of the chief or any of his department heads, division heads? Chief, I don't see anybody else, but I just wanted to take a moment just to say thank you sincerely for your leadership. Thank you sincerely for the entire team and the leadership, but most importantly, I want to stress how much we all appreciate the men and women of the Springfield Police Department. They're out on the streets every day, every night, and not necessarily the best of circumstances at times. And we appreciate the efforts to keep Springfield safe and make us a better community. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman. And you kind of stole my thunder there. I want to say it's easy for me to sit up here and mention this stuff, but it really is the men and women that are out there working 12-hour days, working overnights while we're sleeping, working in freezing cold temperatures to ensure our citizens are safe. So thanks for your all's support when it comes to the work that we do. Thank you.
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break before the fire department. Thank you.